Hey guys, good morning, good morning, good morning. We are starting at 10. The trial started at 9:30. There is a half hour delay because they want to make sure no child pictures are shown because it is possible there may be some well that's why you get called Debbie, Robbie. You know. um See, you made me lose my train of thought. So there may be some possible unsavory pictures of children in this trial. So the trial is on a half hour delay. So it started at 9:30. I did not see any movement from the court yet, but I was planning on doing a recap anyway. So the victim in this case is Christina Parcel. Um, she was a veterinary tech, and I think, if I remember correctly, she had been married and divorced twice by the age of 24. I do not recall her age at the time of her death, but I believe she was in her late 20s, early 30s. Um, so she had met a man that was much older than her, and he was married and had children, yet he had an affair with her. And oh, she was 41. Okay, so she was a little older than I thought she was. Um, and they had a child, and he divorced his wife and got with her when she had the child. They broke up, and then she got engaged then she started dating a man named John Mello. They had dated in the past. He knew her dad, and they had dated on again, off again in the past. Hey, Lori. And they got back together when her daughter was 3. After they got back together, she gave up custody of her daughter. I don't know why. I don't know if she did it because she got with this man, or I don't know why. They didn't really say. But it was after she got back with this older gentleman who is now 69. And this happened in 21. Her death happened in 21. And the daughter, I am terrible with ages. I'm terrible with numbers. Was the little girl was like 9 or 10? I no, maybe 9. I think maybe in 21. Um, so she gave up custody. So her dad, John Mello, took her to Italy with him, and she then decided she wanted custody back. So her boyfriend, Bradley Post, he has money. He's an elderly gentleman. He had retired. Oh, my cat scared me. So he had some money from like retirement and investments and things like that. So she drove, he didn't say he bought her a car, but she drove a car that he had bought. And he also paid for a cell phone for her. And then he cloned the cell phone so he could keep track of her and see who she called and all of her text messages and all of that. So, which I find that incredibly creepy, but to each their own. Um, so when court started, okay, well, let me finish telling the base of the case first. Um, so on October 13th, 2021, he called her and he couldn't get a hold of her. So he went to her house and rang the doorbell and nobody answered. So he went around to the back door, which is usually left unlocked, and he um, saw rose petals, and he followed the rose petals, and she was laying on her back, unalived, in the living room. And then he called 911. And he wasn't broken up. Like while the cops were there investigating, he was on the phone and it was kind of like, well, I have to take this call. So, um, John Mello is her ex, and he was friends with Zachary Hughes, and they found over 1,000 messages on WhatsApp between John Mello and Zachary Hughes, and they were asking Zachary Hughes to harass her. So I don't know why he actually unalived her. I don't know if the messages changed in nature to change that. I don't know exactly. We haven't got that far in the trial. But we heard from the 911 operator yesterday, the deputy that was the first responder. We heard from Bradley Post. Now, when I started the stream yesterday, I actually had to start a second stream when the trial actually started, because the first thing they did was they did a proffer of him because the defense wanted to ask him all these questions about why he was in jail, etc., etc. And they wanted to get that part out of the way before the jury came in. So I sat here and talked for 2 hours. We just sat here and chit chatted. And then I was like, you know what? Nobody wants to sit here and watch me talk for 2 hours. So I restarted the stream, um, and ditched the 2 hours. And then when I came back for lunch at 2, I sat here for a half hour and talked because I forgot about the half-hour delay. So we're not doing that today. I'm just giving y'all a recap. So nobody leave. We're fixing to start watching the trial. Um, so then when he got to the stand, he's in, his prison clothes and he's shackled. He has the waist chain and all that. So he's shuffling and, the little shackled shuffle thing. So the state asked him, obviously, you're in jail for a criminal charge. And he's like, yes. So then the defendant got up there and asked him, and he's like, you're actually in jail for 9 charges, aren't you? And he said, yes. And then he asked him, well, how do you, I think he asked, did you get to know her daughter? And he said, yes, I did. I got to know her well. And after he got off the stand, his testimony was just about finding her body and talking to the police. That was basically all his testimony was. But then when he got off the stand and the jury was excused, he said, Judge, I just want to put it on the record that I think he opened the door by saying he knew her daughter well, and I should have been able to ask him more questions about his relationship with the daughter. So he wanted that on the record, so to preserve it for appeal if Zachary Hughes gets convicted. But I don't understand what the child essay has to do with the murder, unless, like Lori said, that has, I mean, not Lori, Kelly, that has something to do with the unaliving, which she said up here somewhere. Yeah, there was that as well. And there was also, so there was pictures, there was SA, and I heard she was a vet tech, and she fostered animals that needed a home. And I also heard that they did stuff to the animals as well. That's all I'm going to say about that. And he also got um, envelopes of nude photographs of her, the fiance, the one that's in jail for the whatever he did to her kid. He got nude pictures of her, and that eventually came out that I don't know if it was prior to being a vet tech or in addition to, she worked for an escort service. And again, have no idea what that has to do with the case. Um, so that was his, and then they called the operations manager from the animal hospital and asked about her interview and how long it took. There were so many witnesses yesterday that were like 5 minutes, 10 at most, and oh, they do. They both sound creepy. And I've also heard that she was knew about it and was doing it too. I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead either. But I mean, I'm sure by the end of this trial we'll know a lot more. But there's probably a lot more they're not allowed to bring in because it muddies the water too. So see, that was what I was wondering. I didn't know if he was going to have a trial or if he had pled guilty because he's definitely in custody. Um, and then they talked to more deputies and they talked to a bunch of neighbors just to ask um, about did the cops come and ask you about your ring camera? But then they weren't showing the footage, and I'm like, why are they asking that if they're not going to show the footage? But then they asked the person that enhances the footage, the person that from the photo division of the whatever they're called, that I have it written down. Oh, he was a SLED agent. Remember, you guys remember SLED from the Alex Murdaugh trial? They called the audio and video enhancement person, and he was able to zoom in because the house across the street had a motion activated camera. So when a car would drive by, it would turn on, and a car happened to drive by just as the guy was like in the doorway of her house. That's because I did a I did a bad thing. I went in another chat this morning and begged people to come into my chat. And the star witness yesterday was a sweet little old retired lady that sits in her front window every morning drinking her coffee and saw the guy in all black with a backpack and a mask and a hat and actually saw his face before he put the mask on. So she identified him in court. And then the last witness, and I think they finished, yeah, they finished with him. Unless they didn't finish cross, but I thought they did. He didn't ask many questions because all I have written down here is that what time they saw his bike. Because he rode away on the bike, but they didn't see the bike. They didn't see the bike at first, they just saw him. So he must have hidden the bike somewhere. No, you didn't do a bad thing at all. In fact, I put in the description because I didn't know anything about this case. I was going to start showing the shit. I have lipstick on my tooth. I was going to start showing like the preliminary hearings and stuff for the Shanna Gardner trial because I didn't know what trial, no trial was going on that I wanted to stream because I don't want to watch the baby in the garbage trial. And um, I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, oh, there's a new trial starting. So I found on Rumor, Gossip, and Innuendo, Kathy's channel, she's been waiting for this trial. She's known about it for 2 years, and so she did like an overview, like you know a recap of the murder. And if you don't know Kathy, I put the description the link to that video in the description box. So if you guys don't know Kathy, go watch that because she has got a way with words and she is hilarious. And she tells you pretty much everything you need to know. So go watch her. So I watched that. She has a playlist too. Um, of I don't know, maybe all the preliminary hearings and stuff she watched, and she knows what's allowed to be talked about and what's not, because she knows details that did not come out in trial with this guy yesterday. So, oh really, he did? Well, I'm gonna have to find that too. Shanna Gardner's in trial. In court right now. No, it's not court vibes. It's a different Kathy. Um, her channel's this channel's called Rumor, Gossip, and Innuendo. Let me see if they no, they're looking at a fire alarm again, which might mean oh, Shadow, you don't need that door open. Come on, StreamYard. Okay, don't start this. I got faster internet for you, StreamYard. You're not supposed to do this. Shut up. That is her room, and she hates it when I shut that door. There we go. Oh. Yes, it is gossip, rumor, and innuendo. I'm wondering if they're showing the fire alarm because the court already came in and then did a sidebar or something. Because that's what happened yesterday. They came in. Oh, maybe not. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's what happened. Well, shoot, I hope it's not like it was yesterday. Because yesterday we sat here for 2 hours while they proffered that guy. Oh, dang, they're going over the.
Supreme Court. She was responsible for taking all the photographs of the scene as it was. And like I said, we went through each of them with defense counsel, and there are a few where they've raised an objection that specifically states Exhibit 63, 64, 65, and 66. I'm also going to pass up to your honor a copy of state we hate or policy. That is 423. The state believes that based on Hawes and based on the circumstances of this case, that the specific photograph should be introduced to the jury as is. State v. Hawes is a very similar case with regard to the cause of death, and that it was a stabbing death. And the Supreme Court confirmed that the admission of the photographs was proper, and I'll direct the court specifically to Head Note 6, where the photographs of the victim who was stabbed to death should have been admitted. It was not an abuse of discretion, where they went to show the circumstances of the crime scene and the location of the body. They go towards the issue of malice in this case. The state intends to elicit testimony from the forensic technician as to the significance of where the body was found, the actions that were likely to have taken after Ms. Parcel was stabbed with regard to the body, and the significance of what the blood pattern indicated. Again, I believe State v. Hawes is on point with this specific issue, and especially where we are offering testimony to extrapolate inferences that we would provide to the jury as to the circumstances surrounding Ms. Parcel's death.
This guy is talented too. He's a Juilliard trained pianist, and he has memorized all of Beethoven's sonatas. I am so jealous of this guy's talent because I can't play worth a flip. And I took lessons for 10 years? No, 12 years. Yeah. Yeah, 12 years.
Defense counsel.
Your Honor, our position is just under a 403 analysis. I'm not sure there's any, I'm not sure what the relevance is. They say it goes to malice, but they can certainly describe the crime scene without having.
Wish they would use their mics.
So I would say under a 403 analysis, very little probative value to those pictures, and whatever probative value is outweighed by the potential prejudicial effect. I would also note the state has prepared for 2 of those photographs. They've prepared another set of photographs with the deceased blocked out of the photograph. So if Your Honor does see probative value, we would ask that those be substituted for the those 2 photographs. And I would also add, they have other photographs of that room that are taken from a wider angle and from that are not close-ups of the of those areas that they are seeking to point out. So we would ask that that those other photographs that they have, which I think they can show to the court if the court needs to see them, but they would be sufficient to point out what they want to show to the jury.
I mean, obviously, this is the first time I'm looking at the photos. What is, I guess, the difference between 63 and 64 is you've got the victim is in it.
The state's going to argue is the actions that were taken after Ms. Parcel was stabbed, and it specifically goes towards the placement and actions taken towards her body after that stabbing. As you know, the state is charged with proving premeditation to this murder. The actions that the state is probative to show his state of mind and this murder and the steps that he took afterwards. In a normal instance, if this were simply a spur of the moment
Whoa.
stabbing or an instance where there isn't evidence, or the state would proffer that there is evidence in this case that actions were taken after
Oh
the
my
act
God.
itself to go to show premeditation.
Oh
I
my
could see where it
God,
would be a
that's
different analysis.
disgusting.
But these specific photographs are clearly probative of those actions that we are arguing that Mr. Hughes took in this instance. So again, the state would argue that while we do have several photographs that show different angles, they are all probative. And I don't believe that the danger of unfair prejudice or spurring the emotions of the jury substantially outweighs that probative value that we're putting forth to the jury.
Okay. I'm gonna take a quick break and then I'll be back. Okay.
In Your Honor, we would ask that there are some other photographs that we are not objecting to. We would ask that Your Honor be allowed to view those as well, so you can look at those in conjunction with the ones you've exhibited to see if those are necessary as the
Okay, that
state says. And also, I would just add that premeditation is not an element of murder, so they don't. I think that's not a correct statement to say they have to prove premeditation.
I'm happy to pass these up.
Any response to that?
I will say that malice.
Malice is definitely
An element that the state is charged with proving, and evidence to that effect. It's obviously extremely valuable, and the evidence from this crime scene is a huge portion of what the state wants to offer to the jury for them to make that inference as to malice in this murder. So again, I passed up all the photographs of the specific crime scene that the state intends to introduce, as well as the two photos upon Your Honor's ruling that those two specific photos need to be redacted. We have done that.
well, you've redacted 67 and 68, and those are coming in by agreement.
Well, only if you rule the other ones are not.
I got you. Okay.
Yes, we would not have an objection to the ones where the deceased is blocked out of the photograph.
Okay.
well, that explains then why he has 9 charges. I keep losing my cursor. I don't know what is going on with my computer. Oh, there it is. It'll disappear and then it'll reappear. I don't know why it keeps doing that. It's driving me nuts. So that probably explains why he had 9 charges, because they weren't allowed to ask. But when he got on the stand, the state asked him that he said he was in jail for a crime, and he said yes. And then when the defense got up, they said you're actually in jail for 9 crimes, for 9 counts of a crime or something like that. And he said, yeah, 9. Oh, there were videos too. Oh, jeez. You know what scares me? I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But because so many things that used to be taboo are becoming normalized, I'm so afraid that stuff like that is going to become normalized. I don't like it. Because on rumor, gossip, and innuendo, Kathy calls them Pedialites because YouTube doesn't like the other word, so she calls them Pedialites. But they say, "Oh, well, that's just how do they put it? That's just my orientation. That's just who I prefer to love." But a child can't make that decision yet. So, yeah, the child can't make that decision. So, how can it be normalized? And I'm just afraid it's going to go there one day, and I don't think it's right. No, I don't. No, I don't think it is. Well, I agree, Flash fan, but there's some things that it's okay when you're an adult and you can consent. And then there's other things that it's not okay when you're a child. You don't get, you can't consent to things when you're a child. 12? 12 is the worst age to make that consensual. 12 is when you're still a kid but starting to become an adult and you don't know what you don't you're so confused when you're 12. That's a horrible age to be the age of consent. So in Bradley Post's testimony yesterday, we found out he was getting envelopes of pictures of her, or she was sending the pictures. Wait, she was she sending pictures like to other men to earn money, or was she the one sending the pictures to her fiance? Oh, sold pics online. Okay. So somebody else then. I think it was implied yesterday that John Mello was the one
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Kalen Ford.
sending the nudie photographs to him, and then he was sending it to other people that knew Bradley Post, and it had his return address on it to make it seem like he was sending nude pics of her all over the place.
Please stop at the end of the bench. Place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Caitlin Ford.
Ms. Ford, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell the jury where you currently are employed?
I work at Albuquerque Police Department.
And what do you do for them?
I'm a crime scene specialist.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for the Albuquerque Police Department?
About 2 years.
Where were you working in 2021?
Here at Greenville County Forensics
And what specific role?
as a forensic technician.
And could you describe for the jury, what kind of actions you take, what your duties are as a forensic technician when you were with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
So we respond to crime scenes within the county limits. Depending on the crime scene, we can do things such as take photographs, process for fingerprints, collect evidence, just depending on what that specific scene is.
So it's safe to say that collection of evidence on specific crime scenes is one of your primary roles?
Correct.
The same thing would be taking pictures in accordance with that?
Yes,
Were you in that role on October 13th of 2021?
I was.
And how are you involved with the present case,
specifically related to the crime scene on October 13th, 2020?
I was the primary crime scene investigator for this case.
So you were tasked with processing the home at 122 Canebrake?
I was.
And in your role as a forensic technician, are you subjected to trainings and continued education for that role?
Yes, I have my bachelor's in science and forensic and investigative science. In the past, I've held certifications in bloodstain pattern analysis and fingerprint analysis, and I am currently part of a specialized unit called the Major Crime Scene Team in Albuquerque that responds to all homicides and officer-involved incidents.
Approximately how many crime scenes do you process in a given year?
I would say over 400.
So can you describe for this jury, specifically related to October 13th of 2021, what your process was on arriving at 122 Canebrake and steps you took with your specific role?
So when I arrived on scene, I met with officers and detectives on scene just to get a brief run through of what was going on. After that point, myself and officers did an initial walkthrough of the scene just to see the layout of the house and where things were located.
So when you were doing the layout of the house and going through there, did you take photographs of the outside of the house?
Yes,
If I show those to you, would you recognize them?
I would.
Let's show defense counsel what is State's Exhibit 69 through 84. Witness was 69 through 84. Did you take your time to review those? And let me know if those are the pictures that you took of the outside of the Canebrake home?
Yes, these are the photographs that I took of the exterior.
So that was what the Canebrake home looked like when you arrived on the scene October 13th of 2021?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit 69 through 84. Counsel?
No objection, Your Honor.
69 through 84.
Court, I'm going to go through these. And if you like, I'll put the pointer here. You can use it. Starting with State's Exhibit 69. What is State's Exhibit 69 a picture of?
So that is a photograph of the gray Lexus that was parked in the driveway.
Were you able to identify in the course of the investigation there who was driving the gray Lexus that day?
Yes, it was the victim.
Showing you State's Exhibit 70.
That was the red Mercedes that was parked in the driveway as well.
Who was driving that vehicle?
Mr. Poe.
State's Exhibit 71.
That is the front side of the residence showing the windows along the front door.
72.
That is a close-up of the front door.
3.
That is a photograph of the exterior side of the front door handle.
74.
That is the gate on the right side of the residence. If you're standing facing the roadway, just showing the gate into the backyard area.
So is that, are you staring at Canebrake Drive there?
Yes,
Is that the red Mercedes in the driveway?
yes.
75?
That is the photograph of the back or side door of the residence.
And at this time, had the initial deputies already gone through the house?
Yes,
76?
that is a photograph of the backyard.
So would this be looking to the opposite side that we were just reviewing, where the driveway,
Yeah.
away from the driveway?
Yes, away from the driveway.
77?
That is a photograph of you standing at that gate that we just viewed, looking at the end of the the end of the backyard.
78?
That is just showing a close-up of the creek and what you can see from the backyard.
We're gonna go to State's Exhibit 80.
That is the gate on the opposite side of the house, leading into the backyard.
That's looking into the backyard.
Yes,
81?
that is just showing another close-up of the backyard along with the second-story porch.
82?
That is a photograph of the nook that is underneath the second-story porch on the back side of the house.
Now, you called it a nook.
Yes,
If I'm standing on Canebrake Drive, can I see somebody under there?
no, you cannot.
And if I'm standing, let me go back to State's Exhibit 78. In the backyard there, what was the collection of houses like, I'll say, with relation to the backyard?
It was,
Or how close in proximity were other?
they weren't that close. They were separated by both of their own backyards, including that woodsy area and a creek.
Go to State's Exhibit 83.
So that's just another close-up of that nook area.
State's Exhibit 84.
And now we've moved out into the front yard, and that's just showing a broader photograph of that gate on the left side of the house.
So from where you're standing there, taking State's Exhibit 84, could you see into that nook there that we were just reviewing?
No, you cannot.
After reviewing the outside of the house, did you thereafter go inside the house and do the same process of taking photographs and reviewing inside the house?
Yes,
If I showed you those photographs, would you recognize them?
yes.
I'm gonna show defense counsel what is State's Exhibit 40, 40. States 38 through 62, and states 63 and 66.
Well, I guess I could have told you since there's no talking right now. What are we waiting for? This has been such a quiet trial. I might have a pattern for Marvin. I've got a Looney Tunes book. I'll have to look and see if I have a pattern for him in there. In Venezuela, in the church group that we went with, and my pastor stood up and said, "Doesn't it make you feel better that we could have driven there if we wanted to?"
Showing you the same. Please review those. And let me know if those are the photos you took.
Yes, these are the photographs that I took.
So that was the state of the scene when you entered that day?
Yes.
Now, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 38 through 62, as well as 63 and 66.
I'm sorry, you're one moment. Your Honor, just subject to our objections that we discussed earlier and the reasons behind so on exhibits 63 and 66, no other objection.
Board, I'm gonna go through these with you one by one. Walk through the house with you. For you, State's Exhibit 40.
So that is a photograph of the interior side of the front door, which is in a room that I referred to in my report as the front sitting room. Yes.
Exhibit 38.
That is a close-up of the door handle to that front door, showing that it was in the locked position.
Exhibit 39.
So this is a photograph of the interior of that front sitting room, where you can see the victim and you can see some apparent drag marks as well.
Exhibit 41.
That is just a different view of the same thing, showing there are stains, apparent blood stains on the couch, as well as the pooling underneath the couch, the drag marks, and you can see right there is one of the flower stems.
So you noted, you said drag marks.
Yes.
In this photo. Could you explain that a little bit more, how you derived that based on the pattern of the blood that is displayed in the photo?
So yes, as I referred to earlier, there's a pool of blood right there underneath of the couch. From that pool of blood, that blood being on the victim's clothing, when she was moved from that original location, it created the drag marks that you can see there on the floor. And then on top of these drag marks right here are what we refer to as drip stains. That just means that an object or person or thing that had blood on it, that blood volume dripped on top of those drag marks.
You said you identified some flower stems in this photograph. Could you show me specifically where they are? Is this what you're referring to here?
Yes.
Okay. Try to use State's Exhibit 42.
So that is a close-up of the victim's right hand, mainly noting the chipped thumb fingernail, which is something that really stood out to me on scene.
Why does that stand out?
Broken fingernails can be a sign of a defensive, that the person tried to defend themselves. So that's what that broken fingernail kind of portrayed to me.
Fingernails, something you commonly collect in processing murder scenes?
Yes, it's standard procedure, but considering that one of them was broken, it became apparent that we really need to focus on those fingernails.
It's Exhibit 49.
So this is another photograph. From this photograph, you can also see some more of the rose petals and the leaves that are leading into the hallway.
Were you able to find the victim's phone at the scene?
Yes, the victim's phone, it's kind of hard to see, but it is right there in that blood pool.
Right here?
Yes,
Were you able to collect it?
yes, it was collected.
Who did you subsequently give it to?
I gave it to Investigator Starkman.
I want to bring your attention specifically to the couch
Yes.
there. What do you notice about the accumulation of blood and what the significance of the location of the blood as it relates to the couch?
So with that blood volume being located there, we call that a pooling of blood. The coagulation of the blood tells me that that a major artery was hit, and that also that is the site of where the initial incident occurred. Along with that, you can see some disturbances in the blood there that also signifies that the couch was most likely moved after the incident.
Should States Exhibit 50.
So this is a close-up of that couch and coffee table area, showing the flower stems that were partially located underneath of that orange pillow and underneath the table. And it is also showing additional blood spatter that was caused. The location of that blood spatter, since it goes under the table, and the size and shape of those blood stains showed me that the table was also moved back into place after the incident.
Is that the victim's phone there in the bottom corner?
Yes.
I'll show you States Exhibit 46.
So this is a close-up of those rose petals and leaves that are leading from the doorway to the sitting room from the hallway of the house.
States Exhibit 45.
So that is the view of the sitting room from the hallway, just again showing those rose petals and leaves.
That's the hallway looking towards the front door.
Yes.
States Exhibit 43.
So this is a photograph of the hallway while standing in the living room, just showing how some of those flower petals go into the hallway, and also the discarded pair of sunglasses that was located in the hallway as well.
Exhibit 47.
This is a photograph from a further point in the living room, again, just showing that entryway into the sitting room in the hallway.
So inside, that is the sitting room.
Correct.
Show you States Exhibit 51.
So this is a photograph from on top of that console table sitting in the sitting room where the victim's purse had been located, and it's just showing that some of the rose petals and stems had made it onto that table.
The rose petal thing is so weird.
This is showing the victim's purse that I was just referencing, and showing that the rose petals were also inside of her purse.
Approximately how many murder scenes have you processed?
Say close to 150.
You ever found flowers near the body?
No.
And I'm just gonna go back really quick, 52. Are, to the location of these flowers, were there some found inside her purse?
Yes.
Inside the items on top of the table?
Yes.
It's exhibit 53.
So that's just another vantage point from the sitting room of all of the rose petals and the leaves that were located in that doorway.
I'll show you state's exhibit 54.
So that is a blood stain that was located on the wall by the curtains on the front wall of the sitting room.
Were the curtains opened or closed?
The curtains were closed.
55.
So that is a close-up just with scale of that blood stain. That blood stain to me appears to be what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object or thing with blood on it touched a surface that did not have blood on it.
56.
That is a close-up of one of the gray sitting chairs next to that window on the front side of the sitting room, just showing the blood drops that had gotten into the surface of that chair. This shows those blood drips that I was referring to earlier near that gray chair. The reason that those are so significant is because they are farther away from that initial pooling that we saw underneath of the couch. So what that means is that the shape of those blood drops tells me they're about 80 to 90 degrees, which means that an object with blood on it was directly over that area of the floor when that blood drop was created.
I don't even know why he did it at all. But the
Where is this in that room?
That is over by the wall where those curtains and windows are located.
did he cut himself, or was that drips off the knife?
And that's the same, you're talking about the angle with which this blood was most likely transferred. That's different than what you were saying the drag marks were in the earlier exhibit.
Yes, drip stains are created by a blood drop just falling in motion from gravity, kind of if you had a nosebleed and the blood was just falling out of your nose. Because that area of the living room was so far away from the initial blood pool, that was not caused in it. It was most likely caused, again, like I said, from an object or a thing.
Object to the opinion testimony that's being offered. This witness has not been offered as an expert, nor do crime scene techs get offered
But
as
she knows her job.
qualified as experts. The pictures all speak for themselves, so I would object to opinion testimony being offered.
Overruled.
She's testified to her experience in processing hundreds of these scenes, the training she's had. While this is not being offered as expert testimony, she's speaking to her rationally based perception of the angle that these blood droplets came from. As to Mr. Moyer's concern, it's right for cross-examination if he wants to offer a contrary opinion or pry into why she derives her opinion, but she's simply speaking to her experience.
I'm going to overrule your objection instead.
So as I was saying, those blood drops were most likely created from an object or a thing that was in that area.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 60.
So that is showing a clump of hair suspected to be the victim's that was found blood in the sitting room.
Is that area of blood what you described as the drag mark?
Yes.
Show you State's Exhibit 62.
So that is a blood stain that was located on that interior side of the front door. That is, once again, what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object that had blood on it touched a surface that did not.
Finally, State's Exhibit 66.
So this is a photograph of that front sitting room again, where you can see the victim that's located at the end of that drag trail, and additionally another smaller pool of blood, just signifying that wounds were still bleeding at that time.
So you spoke to flowers that were found at the crime scene. Did you collect those and identify those?
I did,
If I showed you pictures of those, would you recognize them?
yes.
Show defense counsel what's marked as State's Exhibit 85 through 93. Showing you what is State's Exhibit 85 through 93. For those photographs that you took of the flowers, or some of the photographs that you took,
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 85 through 93.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection, 85 through 93.
State's Exhibit 86.
So that is a bundle, those are bundled stems with a rubber band that were located underneath of that orange pillow in the living room.
That rubber band is on this stem.
Yes,
On collection.
yes.
87.
That is just a different view of those same stems showing the leaves.
89.
So that is a close-up of one of the flowers that was found on the sitting room floor.
You said wildflower.
Yes, it is a wildflower,
That's
correct.
not a rose.
No,
State's Exhibit 90.
that is just a close-up of that same wildflower, just showing the coloring on it.
All right, expand on that a little bit. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 93. Are those the same stem?
No,
So the stem on the right is not a rose?
no, it's a wildflower.
State's Exhibit 90.
Just another close-up of that wildflower.
Approximately how many of the wildflowers did you collect?
I'm not sure.
6, say several.
Yes,
Why would he mix the wildflowers with the roses? The flower.
In your processing of the house, and looking through everything, did you find any vases,
no, I did not.
containers for flowers?
No,
And in processing that house, I assume, did you take several collections for potentially DNA testing and blood testing?
yes,
What about fingerprints?
yes,
Now, if someone's wearing gloves, do they leave fingerprints?
no,
After you process the scene, what are your next steps upon leaving Cambridge?
So I secured all the evidence that I collected, and then the next day I responded to the autopsy.
Okay. Did you take some pictures of the autopsy?
I did.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 109, 10. 109 and 110. Are these two of the photographs you took at the autopsy?
Yes,
What do they show?
they're showing the decedent's left hand, which contains her engagement ring.
Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 109 and 110.
Without objection.
Objection.
What are your duties when you're at the autopsy? What kind of things are you doing there?
So at autopsies, we take additional photographs of the victim and their injuries, as well as collecting clothing, DNA swabs, otherwise known as buccal swabs, fingernail clippings, head hair samples, and pubic hair samples.
Did you collect buccal swabs and fingernail clippings from Ms. Parcel?
I did.
If I showed you those collections, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 94, 95, 96, and 97.
I didn't know that crime scene techs actually went to the autopsy. In nursing school, I wanted to see one, but nobody else did, so I didn't get to see one. I was like, y'all are chickens.
Showing you 94, 95, 96, and 97. Starting with 94. What is 94?
94 is the fingernail clippings from the victim's right hand.
And could you describe to the jury, when you're taking these fingernail clippings and autopsy, what is that process like?
So we have a sterile set of nail clippers that we remove from the packaging. We then place a piece of paper towel underneath of the victim's hands. I use those fingernail clippers to clip the clippings from her left hand, and then I do the same process with a different paper towel from her right hand. Those are packaged individually, and then the fingernail clippers are packaged and submitted as well.
And is that what you did here?
Yes.
With both her right and her left hand with respect to 94 and 95?
Yes.
What about 96 and 97? What are those?
So these are the buccal swabs that I collected from the victim at the autopsy.
I know we've had some testimony to that effect, but what exactly did you do there to collect those?
So we take a sterile cotton swab and we swab the inside of the person's cheek to collect those cheek cells and get DNA from them.
And you collected 2 of those?
I did.
All right, at this time, the state moves into evidence. State's Exhibit 94 through 97.
I object to the introduction at this time, in that the chain of custody has not been established. These are fungible items, so it would not be proper until the chain is established.
They've already established because we got the collection. Or no, that was for the other guy. Never mind.
Understood.
She collected those as autopsy. That's chain of custody. Why is that not chain of custody?
On taking these samples, being the fingernail samples and the buccal swabs, what thereafter do you do with them?
I take them and I submit them to our property and evidence section.
Presumably for testing?
Yes.
The medical examiner goes to the scene, takes the body to the morgue. She shows up the next day for the
I have
autopsy.
no further questions for.
Chain of custody.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Ms. Ford. I just have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Just about those flowers that were talked about quite a bit during your testimony. First off, the ones that you testified are not roses. Was any determination made as to what type of flowers, what kind of flowers they were?
Just wildflowers,
When you say wildflowers, what exactly do you mean by that?
things that you'd just find in someone's yard,
Okay,
just wildly grown in a field.
okay, and that's just based on your training, or is that based on just your experience of just knowing about flowers?
Just
over the years?
experience about flowers, yeah.
Okay, and the way they were positioned in the house, they were just kind of randomly scattered throughout the house, right?
They were scattered, yes.
Yes, I mean, they weren't in any kind of arrangement or pattern or anything like that.
Yep, they were just scattered.
Okay, one moment. Oh, and I'm sorry, just to be clear, when I said scattered, we're talking about the roses and the wildflowers. They were just randomly scattered throughout the house. Right?
They were scattered throughout the front sitting room area, yes.
So they went basically out into the hallway just a little bit, but it was mainly in that area where the deceased was found. Right?
Yes, there were some in the front of the sitting room, and then there were some located near the decedent as well.
Okay. And again, not in any kind of pattern or arrangement or anything like that?
No.
That's all. Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor. We would ask to recall this witness at a later time.
Thank you.
That defense attorney did the same thing yesterday with the woman who did the buccal swabs from the fiance. That's why I was getting confused.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Eric Turner.
There's not a chain of custody problem. They collected the swabs, they took them into the evidence room, and then the chick from the lab came and picked them up and then took them to the lab to test them. There's not a chain of custody problem. He's trying to make them think there's a chain of custody problem, but there's not. I don't know why he keeps objecting to that. Well, if the judge keeps overruling it, you need to quit making that objection because there's not a chain of custody problem.
Please stop at the end of the bench, sir. Please place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Eric Turner.
And Mr. What is your rank?
I'm a deputy.
Deputy?
Yes, sir.
And who do you work with?
The Greenville County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
I work in the school enforcement unit. I'm a school resource officer for several elementary schools in Greenville County on the east side.
And is that typically called an SRO?
It is.
That's
Yes,
School
sir.
Resource Officer?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Turner, refer you back to October 13th, 2021.
I had 4 elementary schools. So I had just left a school and was actually headed to Buena Vista, where the scene was. And so on my way, the call came out. I was close by. I said, hey, I'll run by there and check on it. It's right there at my school. I just want to make sure there wasn't any threat towards my school. So I responded there, notified dispatch that I was on the way.
About what time did you arrive to the location?
Within, I don't know the exact time, within just a few minutes of the call coming out, I was right behind the first arriving deputy. He was already out of his car.
And once you got there, what did you do?
I stood by with a gentleman later identified as Mr. Post and spoke with him while Deputy Robinson and his trainee went inside to check the residence.
And did you learn that the victim, Christina Parcel, had a daughter?
I did.
And what was your role in regards to her daughter?
So as soon as I found out that she had a daughter, Vista right there, that being my school, I immediately switched roles and went to, I've got to get to the school to make sure that the school is safe. He gave me just a little bit of background, family background. So I was under the impression, hey, there may be an issue with this child. So I stood by for just a few more minutes and then I left and went to the school to make sure that everything was okay. Prior to me leaving, I actually called our front office at the school and asked, was this student there? And she said, yes, she's here. I said, do not let her leave with anybody. I want the school locked down until I get there. I'll be there in just a minute. So the school handled their protocol, did what they were supposed to do. And then I arrived and made confirmation that she was there, she was in a classroom, and she was safe.
So, so as soon as you found out about Christina Parcel's daughter, you arrived at the school, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived there, did you talk to anybody?
Just the administration, and they confirmed back to me, hey, she's in the classroom, she's good. I'm like, let's leave her there. I don't want anything to disturb her normal day until we figure out what's going on.
And then how did y'all decide when and how Christina Parcel's daughter was going to leave?
We kind of discussed what was going on. I told them, as far as I was concerned, just let her have a regular day. There's no need to take her out of the class, and let's just let her proceed with her day, leave as normal. I spoke with a couple of the investigators, and it was determined just she can leave with the family member like she normally does. They walk them up to, it's called the front path, goes out in front of the school, and they walk home because they live right there. And so we just allowed that to proceed on as normal, like she does every day.
Please answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
May it please the court. Deputy Attorney, you had a body worn camera that day, did you not?
I did, sir.
And did you take steps to record some of the activities that you engaged in or around Cambridge on that?
I did. As soon as I got out of the car, I believe shortly after getting out, it was on.
So what time is Buena Vista let out of school?
2:15.
Okay. And so maybe it's a silly question, but on that day when school was let out, Ida would be coming home, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And being a school resource officer, you're familiar with issues related to children's attendance at school, is that correct?
It's really none of my business. If the attendance clerk brings it up, I may do something about it.
Deputy Turner, if a student at Buena Vista, let's say she didn't want to go home, would the law make her go home?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
I'm just asking if he knows that.
I mean, it has happened before, not with me.
But if a student says, I don't want to go home, I'm not going home, must the student go home?
Again, we're going to look into it, probably contact DSS, get them involved in it, our investigators, our crimes against children investigators, and figure out what's going on, why this child doesn't want to go home, stuff like that.
That's further on. Okay.
Any redirect? No redirect, Your Honor.
Now, a good time to take a little break.
The next witness is going to be quiet.
Okay. You may step down, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a morning break. Again, no discussion about this case amongst yourselves or anyone.
And again, I service, you're correct.
Yay, break time. I hate this part of trials because I don't know what to say. And usually, if I have a good number of people watching, they start to leave when I start talking. ah. I feel like I got a burp, but it's stuck. Yes, such is the minutia of court. I need to download some stuff, like some clips that I can play for stupid stuff. I need to download Red from that 70s show saying dumbass because we need it for the Karen Reed trial. Because Brennan is just, I never thought I'd want Lally back. But Lally's boring. Brennan is just stupid. Yeah, and right now I am not monetized, so I can get away with stuff. Loud. Oh, there we go.
One, two, three.
You got and remember what you had.
Tucker, come. Shh. Can you get back to your seat, please? We don't do that. Okay.
I don't know. Oh, where are you? Belle, come on. You gotta go? Why were you barking if you didn't have to go potty? Do you have to go potty? Come on. No. Why are you barking if you don't have to go? Do you have to go? Well, make up your mind. I'm streaming. Silly goose. Everybody's just sitting there staring at an empty chair right now, Belle. I'm never getting another beagle. Never, ever again. They are the most indecisive dogs. They're super smart, but they are the most indecisive dogs in the world. I don't know about the flowers. I mean, like, the flowers, first of all, I don't know if did John Mello ask him to unalive her? Like, was that the mandate? Did it change from harassing her to unaliving her? And if he did he tell him to sprinkle the flowers everywhere? And if he told him to sprinkle the flowers everywhere, was that supposed to be a sign that the love is gone? Or was that supposed to implicate the fiance? Like, I'm so confused about why the flowers. Because if you think about it, it could cut both ways. Like, it could implicate him as being the ex. It said, I read like a thing from off of Court TV where it said it was a ritualized, the body was left in a ritualized manner. So is putting flowers around a body a ritual? I don't know. She was stabbed 31 times. But I don't know the placement of the wounds. So I don't know if it was like a specific. I would think ritual means that the stab wounds were in like places, not just like random anger, rage type of all over the place. So, I mean, that's what I think when I think ritual. Like, they're in specific places. But maybe they're just saying the positioning of the body was what was ritualistic about it. Yeah, because they said there were drag marks. So maybe that was the best place. Because it looks like it's not a really big house. So maybe that was just the best room to like lay her out in where he could put the flowers around her. I imagined he had that backpack. I imagine he had like a Ziploc bag with like the rose petals in it. Because I didn't picture him taking the time to like cut the flowers off and peel off the petals and put them around her at the scene. I figured he would have already done that at home and put them in the baggie and then put the baggie of rose petals in his backpack. But apparently not if he had a whole stem, a bunch of stems put together with a rubber band that was left at the scene. Apparently he did all that when he got there. So they said yesterday she returned home, I guess, from taking her daughter to school at 9:07. He was first seen there at 9:15. So, and the first picture of him on his bike was captured at 9:27. So that's just over, what, like 10 minutes? He had time to stab her and stage the scene in just 10 minutes? Because if he had it already cut up and ready to put around her body the way he wanted to, why did he bring the stems with him? Why did she go back home? Because I checked, because it was the 13th. So I checked to see what day of the week it was, because I thought maybe it was Friday the 13th. I don't know why my head just went there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
How about now? Better? Is that hum gone?
Because I don't know enough yet to know if she even knew Zachary. Like, we haven't got to the connection yet. Yeah, see, I don't know. All I know, like, the only co-worker we've talked to, I think, was the woman that did her job interview. And the only person that seemed to be concerned that she wasn't answering her phone so far is her fiance. Because, like, if I didn't show up for work, my coworkers were calling me going, Debbie, where are you? Because I would occasionally oversleep and not end up being late. There's just so, it's like the more I find out, the more questions I have. So I don't know if she knew Zachary Hughes. Well, she's a vet tech. That's medical field for animals. I'm trying to see, but I think that was the only person from the animal hospital that they talked to so far. Yeah, the best witnesses from yesterday was the fiance and the woman that sits at her window every morning looking out in the neighborhood while she drinks her coffee. But she didn't go. I watched rumor, gossip, and innuendos every day. She does a recap video on whatever case that she's interested in. And this morning, she was like, she impugned this town gossips or neighborhood gossips integrity. She's like, you're doing it wrong. You're not supposed to wait and go to the cops like 3 months later. But apparently, she saw all the cops, but she didn't go talk to them that day. But she kept saying on the stand yesterday how scared she was because she saw this guy. But I think, no, she was only afraid after the fact, after she found out what had happened. Music research. Oh, that's the euphemism for murder. Okay, music research. Well, they were never married. I was gonna say I don't understand why people murder their exes, but they were never married. So, I always say just get a divorce, but they were never married. But people, you can share a child. I have two stepdaughters, and if it hadn't been for me, because my husband's ex-wife moved, I live 2 hours north of where they lived, and they moved up here where I live, and my husband still lived down there, and that's how we met. He always came up here during the holidays to spend time with them. Other than that, he didn't get to see his kids. She took them away from him basically and was not following the rules of the divorce agreement, and my husband just didn't fight her. And I hate that he's like that, but that's just his personality. He doesn't push back. And after he moved up here, he got to see him all the time because I made sure he got to see them all the time. I made sure his child support got paid, and I would pay, like, I would get him caught up on his back child support because he had a hard time finding work and stuff up here. And one time I paid like $400 for his child support when he got behind. And that went and bought a new cell phone with it. But anyway, you can share children peacefully and not kill the other person. It is possible. Even if they're not great people. But apparently this child was not being taken care of the way she should have been. And that's sad. But you know what? You don't kill. You go to the police. You go to, well, in Florida it's DCF, but you go to an agency that helps take care of kids, and you say, look, this is what's happening in her home. I need help. Why don't people go through proper channels? I don't get it. I don't understand. See, Kelly, it's just me and you now. I talk and everybody leaves. when I pre-record videos, I get all these comments about how I have a great best friend voice and how friendly I am and blah 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 blah. You've not taken over. That's what I want. I want conversation. I want people to talk so I have on topic things to discuss. I hate sitting here and trying to think of things to talk about. I end up talking about the video games that I'm playing and what I'm going to cook for dinner, and nobody wants to hear that stuff. They want to talk about the trial. And if I don't have anybody to talk about the trial with, I'm just going to sit here and ramble on. It's better than just sitting here and doing nothing. So my doggo is worrying me. She's just wandering around, and she's old. So you haven't taken over at all. Yeah, now we're talking about the trial. Yeah. But so some channels are calling this the Rose Petal murder trial. Others calling it the Twisted Secrets murder trial because of all the twisted secrets. And the more I find out, the more questions I have, because I didn't know anything about this trial. I've not watched any of the hearings, so I don't know any of the motions in limine, other than that they don't want the child pictures being talked about, or is there actual SA, or is it just pictures? Well, you said they were videos. Are they videos of actual SA, or just videos of like bathing or that kind of stuff? I swear I don't understand. That to me, of course, everybody knows, like, oh, just because you're fine, you're always here. I know you're always here in the background, even if you're not talking. The John Benet Ramsey case. I'm not like blaming Patsy, because she was a pageant girl. But, she's like, there's nothing sexual about it. And if anybody thinks there is, they're sick. Well, yeah, exactly. That's the point. There are sick people out there. Don't put your child in that position. I'm not blaming her for what happened. I'm just saying there is no way I would put my kid out there like that, because there are sick people out there. And I did a video. I'd never done this before, but I know other YouTubers had done it. So I watched the Netflix special, the newest one that they did, the 3-part special on the John Benet Ramsey case. And I just watched it and nothing else. And I kind of did like my thoughts about it. And there were so many other people that were suspects that I didn't know about, and they're just plain and simple Pedialites. And they all some very, very, very good alibis. But there are so many other people that they could have looked into a lot closer that they just didn't. Yeah. And all the makeup and all the revealing costumes, to us it's cute, but to sick people it's a whole other thing. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. How can you look at something so sweet and precious and innocent and have those thoughts about it? I don't get it. It is disgusting. Ugh. Ugh. My my stepdaughters have nieces and nephews, and they have started putting them in beauty pageants, even the nephews. And one of their sister-in-laws don't like that they put a boy in a pageant. And I didn't either. But I have enough trouble with my stepdaughters than to come out and say, well, I wouldn't put a boy in a pageant either because my stepdaughters and I have issues. I cut them off for 2 years because of the issues, and now we're just starting to make some progress toward reconciliation. So I didn't say anything. I just let it go. I just kind of pretended like I wasn't even paying attention. But no, I don't think. Actually, I have a problem with beauty pageants at all because my dad, after my mom died when I was 21. So I dated several women before he remarried, and there was one he had got kind of serious with.
Like Your Honor, the state calls Tina Parcel.
And she said, "Oh, look at her up there. She's never going to need a man. I mean, she's never going to need to work. She's going to find a man that'll take care of her." And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no.
Tell the truth. The whole
That's
truth,
not what a beauty pageant
and nothing
is
but the
for.
truth, so help you God.
That's wrong." So I don't like them because they create that type of mentality. Now, if you need to go to college and you're going to win a scholarship, that's different.
Tina Parcel, I go by.
Ms. Parcel, where do you reside?
I prefer not to give my home address, but I do live in Greenville County. Yes.
And what is your relationship to Christina Parcel?
She's my younger sister.
And so, can you tell the jury a little bit about y'all's relationship going back to the thousands and kind of taking us through that?
And she was 2 years younger than me, so we were close. We were different people, but we were, close in age, close as sisters. Early 2000s, she'd gotten married for the second time. I got married the first time. We were both in our lives. We were close, but not intertwined, I guess would be the way to put it. We'd be young enough where all of your childhood, younger, older sister relation, all of that baggage hadn't quite gotten away yet.
And did she ever begin a relationship with John Mello?
Yes, she began dating Mr. Mello, I believe, around December of 2008.
And in 2008, where were y'all living?
2008, I lived near downtown on Glen Street, right behind Cleveland Park. My sister lived at that time, in her home in Greer with her estranged husband.
And how long did Christina Parcel and John Mello date?
They broke up, to my understanding, October of 2015, so just under 7 years.
And during that time, did she have a child?
She did. She had my niece.
And when was your niece born?
June of 2012.
And so during the time in which Christina Parcel was dating John Mello, what kind of relationship did y'all have?
So they began seeing each other, again, just based off of my sister's papers and all of that that sort of thing. December of 2008, the kind of person I had to put things like in place and time. So December of 2009, my dad had his first stroke when he was 51, and within a year, so April or May of the next year, my sister wrote a letter cutting off contact with our whole family, saying that she had reached a new place of spiritual love and needed to only have true and pure love in her life, etc.
And so around 2009, did you see her very often?
I would see her less and less in 2009, and then beginning in 2010, she cut off contact, and we didn't see her for 4 years.
So from about 2009 to 2013?
2010 to 2014, we didn't see her for 4 years.
And did y'all have the occasion to reconnect?
My sister reached back out to my parents July of 2014. My parents found out they had a grandchild. That my niece was 2 years old. My sister began reconnecting. She reached out to me. We met for, I don't know if it was lunch or dinner, but Freddy's Custard and Easley was the first time I kind of got to see her and my niece again for the first time in 2014.
So during that time, did you know where Christina Parcel was living?
She lived in a house at Easley on 3rd Avenue or 3rd Street. I don't remember Avenue or Street.
And is that where she brought home her daughter?
Yes, my understanding is Aida lived with her full time. The photos I've seen in that time period, she had a room, there were photos there, and they lived together.
So she was raising your niece during that first couple of years.
Yes, and all the court documentation follows that as well.
And during that time, did you have the occasion to meet John Mello?
Not during the first few years of my niece's life because we didn't have contact. I met him maybe a time or two from 2014 to when they broke up in 2015.
Did they ever live together?
No, he was living with his wife at the time.
So around 2014, 2015, you and your sister sort of reconnected?
She reconnected with the whole family, correct.
And did Christina Parcel and John Mello ever engage in disputes over who had rights to their daughter?
For years, yes.
About when did that custody dispute begin?
They broke up sometime in October of 2015, and I know that she had a family court deposition in March of 2016, so almost immediately would be the best I could put it.
So about the time y'all reconnected, she was already engaged in disputes with John Mello over the custody of her daughter.
I don't believe that I don't believe they had begun in 2014 when she first started reconnecting with our family, but within that next year, shortly after they broke up.
So from that point on, were you, I won't say involved, but were you aware of the dispute, and did you support your sister during that time?
Well, sure. Not financially, emotionally, or, because we had been estranged for 4 years, that is, it sounds so trite. It's a big hurt. This is my baby sister, and I'm trying to find a way to put her back in my life. So even though she was going through this custody battle, I was also kind of trying to get over my hurt feelings with her. So we interacted, but we weren't, again, tied at the hip best friends at that point.
So as time goes on, did the custody dispute continue?
For years, yes.
And did Christina Parcel begin a relationship with Brad Post?
Yes, she did.
About what time did she begin that relationship?
Again, based on documentation I've seen in her effects, within a few months of ending things with John Mello.
So around 2015?
Yes.
And so pushing up to 2020 time frame, did your relationship with her grow closer?
Yes, in January of 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. which is scary. And you dropped something. It's scary. It's aggressive. My sister and I met for lunch, and we're making a plan for how are we going to get my mom through this. As to mom, how are we going to take care of our dad? He's had multiple strokes. And during this lunch, she looked at me and said, I really want you to be a bigger part of my life and my niece's life. And so we started consciously choosing to be more involved with each other.
And at that time, where was everybody living?
So at that time, COVID, I was sheltering in place with my estranged husband at my marital home in Greer. That's awkward. It was. My sister, again, she rented a duplex, so when she had visitation with my niece, they would do those visitations in the duplex, and then when she was not living in the duplex, she spent her time with Brad Post.
And up until about 2020, did John Mello and Christina Parcel share custody of Aida?
Early on, I hate this phrase, but it's the only one I can really know. They had a gentleman's agreement early on about custody that suddenly nobody agreed to, so they went into court. John had primary custody. My sister had visitation, standard visitation every other weekend, weeks during the summer, time on birthday and Mother's Day and the holidays. I think it's Richard Brown. I don't remember.
And so, and then during all this,
yes, multiple times.
So I'm gonna take you to about October of 2020.
Yes.
Did John Mello leave the country with your niece?
Yes, he emailed my sister and said we won't be here for the next visit weekend. Can't make it to the next visit weekend, something to that effect, and missed the court-ordered scheduled visitation. Didn't know where or why necessarily until shortly after when we discovered they were out of the country.
So in October of 2020, where was Christina living? That same duplex?
So no, in again, March going to April of 2020, I'm sheltering in place with my now ex-husband, so super great. I decided I didn't want to do that, and I'm getting an apartment for myself. And my sister had just said, I want us to be closer, and her lease on that duplex was coming due in that spring of 2020, and I told her, I'm getting an apartment. I can get a 3-bedroom apartment. I clearly am an army of one and don't need a 3-bedroom, but if I got a 3-bedroom, then you can have your visit weekends with me, and we can spend time together. We have a playground, have a pool, etc., etc. So summer going into fall of 2020, my sister had her visit weekends with my niece in my apartment, and then she again was living for the most part with Post non-visit weekends or non-visit weeks.
And was Christina Parcel working during this time?
Yes, she was a vet tech.
Was she a full-time vet tech or a...
No, at that time she was part-time.
So in 2020, y'all discover that your niece has left the country with John Mello.
Yes.
Did this sort of set off a new set of litigation as far as the custody dispute is concerned?
Yes, she filed a rule to show cause in family court under the then agreement that she had, because they had reached an agreement. It was in violation of that agreement. Rule to show cause was, the family court equivalent of you broke the agreement. Once we determined where he was, and she had already spoken to family court, her lawyer, Greenville County, tried to reach out to SLED, tried to reach out to the FBI. Once we discovered where they were, started investigating. How do you get someone back from a foreign country?
And was she dedicated to trying to get her daughter back?
Every day.
So what did she do?
Once we finally figured out that there is a Hague Convention for child abduction, not just war crimes, but truly for child abduction. Reached out to the State Department. Her first contact was Zach, and then the second contact was a woman named April Conway. And essentially, you go through this entire application of the circumstances. You have to provide the orders, the existing orders that funnels up through the State Department to, they call it the Central Authority. So the U.S. Central Authority then reaches over to their counterpart in whatever the country is, because this happens for all of these countries that are a part of the convention. And then it goes down their chain. In this case, it was Italy.
And when did she start that process?
Oh, we found out where they were late October, early November. So probably November, possibly December of 2020.
And again, how did you find out that your niece was in Italy?
Her father posted a photo on Facebook of her standing in, I think like a cobblestone plaza type situation. It was nighttime. There was a banner on the wall behind her that said the name Rovigo, Italy. And once we began searching down that rabbit hole, we found an online news article.
Were you having any contact with your niece at that time?
First time my sister got to speak with my niece was Christmas Day of 2020, so it had been 2.5 months.
All right, so you mentioned this Hague Convention. Did Christina continue to pursue that, and in fact, have some hearings in Italy regarding the ultimate custody of your niece?
Yeah, so when you go through this process with The Hague, I am not an expert, but this is one of those things that kind of sticks with you. Since it goes through the Central Authority, essentially that other country, their government is acting on your behalf. So the equivalent of Walt in Italy was representing my sister. It's not that she had to hire an attorney. The state or the nation of Italy was doing it, because this is all international agreements and arrangements. All communication was done to her through the State Department. So they channel up, it goes over, it comes down, and back and forth. The State Department let her know that a hearing had been scheduled for February of 2021, and that she could attend either virtually or in person. And she called me to let me know I was at work. She called me and I asked her if she wanted to go, and she said yes. And I asked her if she wanted me to go with her, and she said yes. So I bought 2 round-trip tickets that day.
And did y'all ultimately go to Italy for a hearing?
We flew out of Atlanta on Wednesday, March 10th. We arrived in Venice, Italy at the Marco Polo Airport. The things to stick with you. We arrived around noon that Thursday. Court was the morning of Friday. We flew back to the States that Sunday.
And were you successful in getting your niece back?
We were nothing at getting my niece back. There was no decision reached in that trip in March. They said they would deliberate and they would reach out with more information.
Now, when you were there, did you get to see your niece?
Did I lay eyes on her? Yes.
Did you speak with her?
And again, this is just based on what happened, not I know the rules of Italy. But when we were there, they said the mother has to go in, the father has to go in, and the minor child cannot go in. He brought her to court, and she was not allowed to go in the courtroom, and she had to stay outside of the courtroom. I couldn't go in because I wasn't a party. She was now an unattended minor in a foreign country, which is, again, not great. And they asked if I would watch her. His attorneys asked that I not speak with her. That wasn't a court order. It was just, hey, can you sit here and watch her and not say anything?
And was John Mello there as well?
Yes, he's the one that brought my niece into court for that hearing.
So did y'all ever return back to Italy again?
My sister returned to Italy. So this was in March of 2021. She, again, received notice from the State Department it felt like forever, of course, but a few weeks later, either end of March, beginning of April, there's another hearing. Again, you can attend virtually or in person. She said, I want to go in person. I asked if she wanted me to go again, and she said, no, I'll go by myself.
So did she fly to Italy?
She did fly to Italy, give or take tax day.
And was she successful in getting the return of your niece?
At first, there was no decision reached, and they said you can leave and come back when we decide. She opted to stay, and a few days later, I can check my records for actual dates. A few days later, they let her know that they had decided to repatriate. Italy repatriated my niece to my sister. John Mello and my niece were brought to a police station. Aida was given to my sister. My sister then had to wait a week to get a replacement passport for my niece because hers had expired when they were in Italy.
While Christina was over there, did she have to hire bodyguards?
We had 2 bodyguards. When we were there, we weren't allowed to, because again, COVID, we weren't allowed to take public transportation. We weren't allowed to sit down in restaurants. So we did have 2 people that were hired to both provide some protection for that day in court, but also to get us from point A to point B while we were in court. And she had the same staff were hired when she went back.
So what day did Christina and your niece return?
April 22nd of 2021.
So when they returned, to what residence did they initially go?
They started living with me full-time in the apartment that we discussed. The lease on that apartment was up in the middle of May, so I already started engagements to where rather than renew the lease on the apartment.
And so did you eventually secure another location?
I had made an offer to buy the Cambridge home December 17th of 2020. I'd already been trying to buy that house for 4 months.
And did y'all eventually move into 122 Cambridge?
We moved into 122 Cambridge on May 14th of 2021.
So when once y'all moved in, you and who all lived there?
I was in the master bedroom, a nice tan with wood trim and a bay window. My sister was across the hall in a not great yellow bedroom. My niece was down the hall from her in what came as a hot pink bedroom. That she was thrilled about that. So it was the 3 of us. I had chosen this home. It was large enough. There was an ensuite. You saw it in the walkthrough. The salmon color in the back had its own full bathroom, and that was going to be where my parents could live if they needed to in the future. So it was the 3 of us.
So you talked about this custody dispute, let's call it, before John Mello and your niece went to Italy. Yes. And now we're past that. During this time frame up until May of 2020, how would you describe the dispute, this custody dispute between Christina and John?
It was active until the moment she died. There were still hearings while he was in Italy. He did not return to the United States for the, I guess it was 5 months, 3 weeks that they were here, almost 6 months. He would attempt to retain counsel, or did retain counsel, though it attend a hearing on his behalf. There was a hearing with regards to when could phone calls happen.
Did y'all ever fear for your safety or anybody, or your niece's safety, or your safety?
We wouldn't let her play outside by herself. It is a beautiful neighborhood, an exceedingly safe neighborhood. I mean, kids everywhere. So it's not that the neighborhood wasn't safe. We just didn't want her to be playing by herself. We didn't want her to get taken. The front window, part of why we always left it open was so we could see the front yard if she was out there.
Did John Mello ever do anything that made y'all feel unsafe?
Can you be more specific with your question with regards to place and time?
Around that time.
Around that time, I can't say if it was John Mello or not. I know that my employer received an anonymous packet full of John Mello and my sister's family court documents, and I know my sister didn't send it.
About the end of June and July, do you remember Christina and Brad Post receiving some envelopes?
Yes. I didn't, many envelopes. It was kind of a flurry of activity as to had all of them arrived in our neighborhood, his neighborhood, the guardian, her attorney, her employer. It was.
Were you aware of the contents of those photos?
Yes.
I mean, of those envelopes?
Yes.
What were the contents of those envelopes?
If it were something that existed in South Carolina, I would call it revenge porn, but apparently that's not illegal here. So
They were
my sister.
show you the marked as states
Illegal everywhere.
and I'm going to show you states exhibits 1A and 1B. I'm going to ask you if you recognize these photos. I'm sorry to have to show you these to you.
Yes, that is my sister, Christina.
Then show you what's marked as States Exhibit 6, envelope States Exhibit 6, and ask you if you recognize photos 6A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yes, those are all my sister.
So, y'all received these about June and July of 2021.
Yes.
Now, did your sister go to the police?
Yes, she went to the police. She went to a postal inspector.
In regards to the photos, how do you know that's your sister?
I'm going to try not to be. I recognize her, having known her her entire life. I recognize her haircut. I recognize her tattoos.
And can you give this jury a time frame of when those photos were taken?
Based on the length of her hair and again the state of her tattoos, I would say somewhere between 2010 and 2011.
And was that the time in which she was dating John Mello?
That's correct.
Now, so how old would Christina Parcel be?
She was born in 1980, so 2010 she would have been 30, 2011, 31.
31. So now I'm going to take you to, well, when did y'all move in? When did you move into the Canebrake house?
May 14th of 2021.
So from then until October 13th, 2021, what was life like?
Well, it was still COVID, but it was less COVID-y than it had been. So my niece joined the swim team and played her first team sport. She had friends in the neighborhood. She miraculously was promoted from 3rd to 4th grade, even though she missed 6 months of that school year. I worked downtown. My mother would come and babysit if Christina and I both had had to work, or maybe our schedules overlapped, and I know that this sounds odd, but, I would text my sister, I'm coming home, can you chop the onions? I'm making this for dinner, or I'm going to the grocery. I mean, it was a really standard, we're living together and we have a kid and school and etc.
So I'm gonna take you to October 13th, 2021. Where were you working that day?
I worked at a company called Norris Financial Group in downtown Greenville.
And we've seen video of your car leaving. Do you remember about what time you left to go to work?
That's not my car, that was a rental, but I left, give or take, 8:30 that morning.
And went to work?
I did go to work, yes.
And when did you realize that this incident happened?
I had a voicemail. My phone hadn't rang, but I had a voicemail. It's a thing that happens sometimes, and it was from Brad Post saying there's emergency at home. You need emergency at the house. You need to come home. And so I grabbed my purse, walked into the hall, told my boss, there's an emergency at the house. I'm gonna go home, and made my way to the car.
And before you left for work, what was going on inside the household as far as Christina and your niece?
Do you mean
About what time did they
that?
wake
Do you mean
up?
that morning? Okay. I slept a little later than normal. Who knows why? And Christina had a job interview, so she was not necessarily up earlier than normal, but trying to get the day started and out the door earlier than normal. So she took Aida to school while I was drinking my morning coffee in that middle sitting room. It's where we call it the den. That's where we spent our time. Christina came back. She had forgotten the school communication folder that you're supposed to bring back every week. She had forgotten that. So she came back to the house to get the school communication folder and stood in the doorway and said she had a hair appointment that afternoon and it was gymnastics that afternoon and what are we going to cook for dinner? And then she said, I love you, bye. And she walked out the door.
And when did you first hear about this incident?
The voicemail from Post said there was an emergency, and as I was going back to my car, he called again, and I again went straight to voicemail, so I called him back, and he said, it's her, I think she's dead. And so I got there as fast as I could.
So did you ride back at the house?
Give or take 11:30 that morning, yes.
Now, in regards to your house, what door do y'all namely do you namely use to enter and exit the house, and which doors do you have keys to? Explain to this jury your front and side door.
Yeah. So I'd been trying. I made an offer December of 2020. Less than a year into COVID, and what neither I nor my realtor knew, this house was under foreclosure. We didn't know that. And because of COVID, all foreclosures were under a moratorium. So it was in foreclosure, but they, not done in foreclosure. And we kept trying to complete the sale and couldn't get the final number that you had to have, the close number, the actual dollars you had to have. So by the time the lease was coming up on the apartment, I have to have a place to live. I want to buy this house. So we had what's called an occupancy prior to purchase agreement, where you're essentially renting the house from the people that own it. So we had this, so I could move in before I owned the house, but it's still a rental. So we had keys for the front door only. We didn't have a key for the back door. And since I didn't own the home, I couldn't change the locks. It was a rental. So when we came and went day in, day out, we would go through that front door. That first month, more than one occasion, we would go out the back door, go play in the yard, try and come back in the back door and get locked out because we had no key for the back door. And like I crawled in through the garage one time to get in the house. So when we were home, we
When you
would.
say back door, is that the door down the side of the driveway?
Yes, I would go into the sunroom, which was my office. And so when we were home, we would leave that door open, but really tried to be diligent to lock it up at night, when leaving, etc.
So you would lock both doors when y'all were going to sleep at night.
Yes, and it's just part of that nighttime routine. You go, you check the doors, you turn off the lights, slide the deadbolt on the front door that had a little slidey lock, and then go on down the hallway.
So if you were going to get out of your car in your driveway and you were coming home from work, which door would you typically use?
Always the front door, not typically, always.
Always the front door.
Yes.
So it would be normal for if Christina Parcel arrived home from a job interview, which door would you imagine she would enter into?
She could only enter the front door.
So what about the curtains in the front of the front room?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, they were kept open.
And what was that front room's meant for?
So it's a standard ranch house, front, long, skinny, formal living room that nobody uses unless you're the kind of person that has furniture with plastic on it, and that's not my life. So, yeah, I see that. You know what I'm talking about. But that front window got a lot of light, and you saw in some of the photos, my sister kept her plants there. We had my 2 silver chairs. The neighborhood kids and my niece would do puzzles in that room, arts and crafts. My sister had a desk where she did her schoolwork that was in front of the smaller window, but it wasn't the TV room or the family congregation eat dinner room. We did that in the den on the other side of that wall.
And so when you left that morning for work, were those blinds open or were they closed?
We always left because it was always open. Blinds and curtains were always open to get lights in for the plants. We didn't keep a light on in that room, so we weren't concerned, say at nighttime, we weren't concerned people were going to see us through that window because we didn't do anything in that room at nighttime that people would see. We were on the other wall, so it was just always open.
So when on this incident, did you talk with law enforcement about that day? Did they interview you? Did you talk to them?
Yes, I sat in Investigator Sparkman's vehicle, and he said, "Tell me the history of your sister." And I said, "How far back do you want me to go?"
Did you gotta tell them what you told us here today?
And then
More or
some.
less?
Yes.
Did you tell him anybody you thought might have done this?
I said I absolutely believe John Mello did it.
Did you know where John Mello was located?
I knew he was supposedly in Italy, but who knows?
And Ms. Parcel, have you ever met Zach Hughes?
No.
Have you ever spoken to him?
I've spoken at him, but no, never with him.
Prior to October of 2021, have you ever spoken to him?
No.
Ever seen him before?
No.
Noticed him?
No.
Have you ever seen Christina Parcel talk to him?
No.
He's never been to the house?
No. I'm not while I was there. I wasn't there 24/7, but no.
Did you know to ever have any communications with him?
I found this week when I was reviewing all of the legal files, an email John Mello sent to my sister where he CC'd.
Christina Parcel to have any interaction with
Absolutely no interaction. No.
Ms. Parcel, you've heard testimony here today, yesterday, that there was cocaine, a small bag of cocaine found in that front sitting room. Do you ever use cocaine?
No.
Did y'all keep cocaine in the house?
No.
Did you know Christina to use cocaine?
I've never seen her do cocaine.
And we discussed this child custody dispute. Was there a guardian appointed to your niece?
Yes, so once my niece was taken and my sister filed a rule to show cause, which essentially opens up the prior action that had been settled, the court appointed a guardian ad litem to act in the best interest of my niece.
And would the guardian keep in contact with Christina Parcel?
The guardian was in very frequent contact with Christina. The guardian did home visits of my apartment, number one, because that's where I would have been returned to. She also did a home visit of Canebrake. I'd have to check paperwork to see if Christina took drug tests during that time. There were many over the years. So.
Did you ever know Christina used cocaine?
No.
All right, Ms. Parcel, if you'll just answer any questions.
Good morning, Michelle. My name is Mark Moyer. I have some questions for you today. Okay. So just want to start off with a little bit about your background with Ms. Parcel. You said Christina was about 2 years younger than you, is that right?
2 years, 4 days.
2 years, 4 days. And you all began living together the first time was at the Woods Road park, is that right?
I had room in my apartment designated for her to have visitation with my niece.
Okay, so y'all weren't living together with the
As I testified to earlier, she had visitations with my niece under my roof at that apartment, but my sister herself typically lived with most during those times.
Okay, and it wasn't until you all moved into the Canebrake house that you all lived together?
No, as I testified earlier, when my sister and my niece returned from Italy, April 22nd of 2021, my niece and my sister lived with me full time. The first few weeks I was still at the apartment, but we moved into Canebrake May 14th of 2021.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about the custody disputes that were going on. You said you did not stay very much involved in the actual disputes at the beginning of that. Is that right?
No, that is not actually the character of my testimony. What I said was that my sister and I were becoming closer and essentially trying to get closer after she had cut contact with me for 4 years. So that's not something you get over quickly.
Sure.
Or immediately.
I understand, but that kept you from staying very much in tune with exactly what was going on at that time. Right?
Well, that and John Mello threatening to have me charged with kidnapping, that also had a factor in it.
Okay. And you gave up, Christina gave up custody of Aida to John Mello, didn't you?
No, I don't believe that's actually accurate, and I would like to make sure it's accurate. As I testified earlier, she and Mr. Mello had a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement, and then when my sister was not receiving the visitation she thought she was due, that's when the actual court actions began, which is not in any way, shape, or form the same as giving up custody, I believe.
Okay, but John Mello had primary custody.
I believe that the agreement was written that he had custody and she had visitation, correct?
Okay, so that was in the court documents, that he had custody, and she didn't dispute that. She didn't fight that, did she?
She had fought that repeatedly, trying to get custody and would reach an agreement with him.
But not initially. When that first document came out, where John got custody, when John Mello got custody, she did not
Mr. Mello had physical custody before there was a document in that original Pickens County family court action. Mr. Mello had physical custody and was not allowing my sister to have visitation, so she took him to court and then reached an agreement where he retained custody, but he was not granted custody by the court.
Okay, but she reached an agreement, so they didn't have to fight it out in the courts because she allowed him to have custody, correct?
That is the agreement which she reached. That's not the same as allowing, but sure.
Well, she agreed to it. That's what an agreement is, right? Right?
She entered that agreement, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Congrats, that's amazing.
And it was not until Ida was taken to Italy by John that she began trying to get full custody. Is that correct?
No, they had multiple family court cases. Sometimes she initiated, sometimes he initiated, trying to modify the agreement that they had.
And it wasn't modified until after she came back, Ida came back, right?
Honestly, I would have to check the paperwork.
Okay. Now, you had met Brad Post before he started dating Christina.
Why does a judge give a dad primary custody when he is an older gentleman and the mom is younger? Does that sound fishy to y'all? It sounds fishy to me.
In 2015 or 2016, correct?
He was a customer at my father's cigar store.
And and that was somewhere around 2000 or 2.
I'll tell you the first time I noticed him as a human being, no.
Okay, you worked for him for a period of time?
No, I did not.
You don't remember?
My sister worked for him, I did not.
Your sister did. Did you never work for him?
My father?
No, did you never work for Brad Post?
So I worked for the company. It was originally called eBridge Technology, so it was owned by Braddock Cunningham. It was a software company. That is where I worked. And then Mr. Cunningham is the one who began purchasing C&E, Network Controls and Electric. So no, I did not work for Brad Post. I worked for Brad Cunningham, who purchased NC&E from Brad Post.
Okay, so if Brad Post said that you worked for him, that would be incorrect.
Never heard him say I worked for him, so I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, I'm saying if you did, you told this department that you worked for him for a period of time, that would not be true.
No, I worked for eBridge Technologies, which again, I don't want to say subsidiary because I didn't do any of the paperwork, but eBridge Technologies, that software company, kind of merged with Network Controls and Electric once Braddock Cunningham became the person that was buying NC&E.
Okay. Christina was working part-time at the as a vet tech, correct?
Correct.
When she died. And Bradley Post was helping her out financially, was he not?
I couldn't give you any type of dollar amounts, but I assume so.
Was he helping with the house at Cambridge?
No.
Okay, but you all had conversations about when you were having trouble getting the house. Did you not have conversations with Christina about getting Brad Post involved to help with that?
No, I unequivocally did not want Brad Post involved.
So you never talked to Christina about, you never sent her an email or said, this house is more expensive than I thought, so maybe Brad Post could buy it and then we could rent it?
No. So I found out October 9th, 2021, that the people I was trying to buy the home for, again, it was in foreclosure. Foreclosures went for forbearance because of COVID, and the dollar amount, the cost to close kept going up. My realtor called me that Saturday and said, it's got to be this much. It was approximately 10 to 15% more than I was approved for. And I told her, I can't do that, but give me a couple days. I'm going to figure something out. And so my sister and I began texting new houses to try and buy a different house, which meant I was looking for a new house at the time my sister was murdered, which means I was not trying to have Brad Post buy Cambridge so I could rent it from him.
Okay. Now, when John Mello took his daughter and Christina's daughter to Italy, he had the primary custody at the time.
That was the agreement, and also he was to allow visitation as per the agreement he reached in family court, yes.
And he was a dual citizen of
I
this
know
country.
he claims to be a dual
Let me finish the
citizen.
question, sorry. He was a dual citizen of this country and Italy. Is that true?
I know he claims to be a dual citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
And your niece became an Italian citizen while she was in Italy.
I know he claims she became an Italian citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
Okay. And you talked about having a bodyguard or someone to drive you around while you were in Italy and then back here. Brad Post was paying for that, wasn't he?
I don't know who paid. I didn't see an invoice.
So when Christina went to Italy in mid-April for the final hearing, she went alone that time, as you testified, correct?
I didn't go with her. That's correct. I understand she went alone.
And she returned to this country with Aida, right?
She returned with my niece April 22nd when they landed in Greenville.
And you met her at the airport?
Yes, I did.
The guardian ad litem was there?
Yes, she was.
Brad Post was there?
Yes, he was.
Who else was there?
Representative from Lindsey Graham's office was there. Friends of the family were there. My parents, people, my sister's neighbor from the duplex where she used to live, and her children were there.
And Brad Post was there?
As I said earlier, yes, he was there.
And he proposed her at the airport, didn't
That was a choice that he made, yes.
he? Then there was a welcome party later that night too, same day?
No, sir. Everybody was at the airport with flowers, with balloons, with signs. My sister and my niece got packed into my car. I took them to the apartment. I picked up Indian takeout food, and we ate Indian takeout food at my home that night.
Okay, so the welcome party was what happened at the airport.
Yes.
And so just to be clear then, Aida was out of the home and gone between October the 5th of 2020 and then mid-April of 2021, right?
My understanding is October 4th, but again, since I was not there when they left the flight, I would have to check documents.
Okay, now you all moved into the Canebrake house on May the 14th of 2021, right?
That's correct. That's when the movers came on Friday the 14th.
Okay, and you testified today something that contradicts what you told Investigator Sparkman in your interview about where everyone stayed in the house.
I was in the tan room, the master room, in the back with the bay window, right over the nook. My sister was across the hall in the yellow bedroom. My niece's bedroom was the hot pink bedroom just down the hall.
Okay, but you told Investigator Sparkman that room had been turned into a playroom and that your niece
No,
stayed.
the purple bedroom was going to be the designated playroom.
So do you remember telling Investigator Sparkman that your niece slept in the bed in the same room with Christina?
No, I'm not saying she didn't. I'm saying there were times that she would sleep there. She would sleep on the couch. She might sleep in her bed. And my understanding is she could sleep with her father as well.
And you told Investigator Sparkman, though, that she didn't have a room, that the room that was supposed to be for her would turn into a playroom, and that she stayed with Christina.
I don't believe I said that she didn't have a room. It clearly had her toys in it, had her clothes in it, had her bed in it. Now, again, I just discovered that my sister was dead in my house and I was homeless, so it's entirely possible I misspoke, and for that I apologize.
That was several days later, on the same day.
Again, I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Okay. Now, Brad Post would come by the house every day, would he not?
I can't say it was every day, depending on the mercurial relationship. Sometimes they were in a better spot. So there would be times where he wouldn't come over at all. There would be times where he would come over and have dinner.
But while they were dating and not broken up, as you told Investigator Sparkman, Brad Post would come over every day. Isn't that true?
Again, not a matter of broken up. If they were in a good patch or a bad patch, as anybody is having a good patch or a bad patch. There would be times he'd be there every day, yes, for dinner or what have you. There'd be times where he wasn't.
Now, you mentioned Ida wasn't allowed to play outside
No, I said we wouldn't let her play outside by herself.
by herself. So then you mentioned that she had friends in the neighborhood, so would friends come over and play inside with her in the
Well, no,
house?
she would play outside with friends. We would do our best to, again, keep an eye out on her, on the friends, as any adult would do to make sure the children could be safe, especially with the creek nearby. So she would play in the house, outside of the house.
Okay. And her friends would play outside with her and play inside with her?
Yes.
Now, I have to ask you just a few questions about the packages that you received, that you were asked about by the solicitor. You mentioned the pictures that were in the packages, but in addition to the pictures, there were some website postings that were included, were there not?
I wasn't shown any by the solicitor.
Do you remember when you looked at the packages, though, do you remember seeing the website from the escort service?
I saw that there was something textual. I didn't lend credence to it.
And again, I hate to have to ask you about this, but were you aware of that part of your sister's past?
I was aware that allegations had been made in family court, just like there had been allegations made I was going to try and kidnap my niece. So I didn't lend credence to them.
Are you aware that she gave a deposition in which she did give credence to the allegations?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
So after the death of your sister, Christina, where was Ida?
I'm sorry, could you clarify the question?
After your sister died, where was your niece?
I would also ask you to rephrase that question to be accurate.
Okay, who did your niece live with?
So after my sister was murdered, what is the question for that?
Where did your niece live?
The guardian ad litem, after my sister was murdered, got an ex parte emergency placement with me. My niece and I stayed with friends, and that's where we went.
All right, and then what happened with Ida on October the 19th of 2021?
She was put into foster care.
Okay, and what time of day was it?
It was at night.
Okay, and police came and got her?
Yes.
About what time at night?
It was probably 10:30 at night.
How long were the police at the house?
I don't know, maybe an hour, less.
And she was taken into emergency protective custody at that time?
Yes.
And who got custody of Ida?
Would you clarify the question, please?
Where does Ida live now?
Oh, I've reached an agreement with Mr. Mello right now.
Okay, so you gave up custody to allow?
I never had custody, but
You dropped your petition to try to take custody?
I did not drop a petition. I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello,
Okay.
and he has custody.
Okay, you never had custody of Ida?
I had ex parte custody briefly.
Okay, and then after Ida was taken out of the home, shortly thereafter, she went to live with John Mello, and she still lives with John Mello. Right.
She was not with John Mello for the first almost year and a half after her mother's death, almost 2 years. She was in foster care, and then she was in third-party placement. He did not receive custody of her until August of 2023.
Okay, and she remains with him.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And John Mello was exonerated of the charges of taking Ida to Italy, is that right?
I believe what you're looking for is a directed verdict of not guilty, not actually exonerated by a jury, yes.
So a judge threw it out, basically.
A judge said South Carolina state law says a non-custodial parent has no rights to their child. Yes, that is correct.
So a judge threw it out. One moment.
I like her. She's holding her own, and then she's like, can you ask that question so it's more accurate? After your sister's death, after my sister was murdered, I like her.
That's all the questions we have right now. Thank you. Just briefly, Your Honor.
After the murder of your sister, where did where did your niece go?
Are you talking short term or long term?
Both.
Again, she was ex parte emergency placed in my care. She was removed from my care and put in foster care for 2 months. After that, she was placed with Allison and Lamar Sutherland from December of 2021 until December of 2022, where she was then placed with her half sister, Isabella Mello, John Mello's eldest child. She was there until August of 2023. And then in August of 2023, when I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello, where I had visitation and my niece was returned to his custody.
And have you seen your niece?
I've not seen my niece since August of 2024.
And do you have rights to see her?
I do.
And have those been complied with?
We currently have active family court action.
So you and John Mello are now in a family court action over the custody or access to your niece.
There is a new action, and the agreement that we reached is currently being appealed in South Carolina State Court of Appeals.
No further questions.
Any recross?
No recross, Your Honor. We would just ask that the witness remain on the speaker.
I would be scared if I was her.
Thank you.
Because if he had her sister killed, he might do the same to her. But she sounds like she's a tough cookie. I still want, I'm sure they're going to get there. I want to hear the connection between this guy and her ex. None of these people know this guy.
Again, no discussion about this case among yourselves. No one can search.
What happened to his mic? I am confused about the house situation. What time are y'all coming back? I'm guessing 2, which means 2:30. Why'd they turn its mic off? I'm confused about the house situation. Can someone please help me? I have bought a home exactly one time in my life. The house that I'm in now, I inherited from my dad. So, she said the house that they were going to buy had been foreclosed on, but because of COVID, there was a moratorium on foreclosures, and that the closing price kept going up. Is she talking about the house they were living in? How could they be living in a house if they had not closed on it yet? And then she said there was one thing that she said she might have gotten wrong or misspoke because she just found out that her sister had been killed and now she was homeless. I'm so confused. What is she talking about? Because she said they moved from the apartment into that house. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they were renting it before they bought it. I guess. But I would think a moratorium on a foreclosure would only happen if the original owner was still in the house. Because what's the purpose of putting a moratorium on a foreclosure if that person doesn't live in the house anymore? That doesn't make sense. Oh, they were looking at another, they were renting that house and they were looking at another house to buy. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. That makes sense. All right. I was confused. I was like, wait a minute. How are you living in a house, but you haven't closed yet? Because I remember that's the one thing. If I've forgotten anything about buying the one house that I bought, I remember closing. Because it was sign this and this and this and this and this and this and this. I've never signed so many papers in my life, except for at work. It was like, and my dad went with me, bless his heart. I was in my 30s, but he went with me. And I'm like, I'm trying to read them before I sign them. And he's like, just sign them, Debbie. Just sign. It's okay. I promise you, it's okay. Just sign them. So if you read them, we're going to be here all day. Okay, Daddy. If you say so. Well, I thought maybe he was going to come back and say what time, but I guess he already told the jury and they just shut his mic off. So since it is almost 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to assume that it's going to be around 1. So, or no, around 2, around 2, and then there's a half-hour delay. So I'm going to guess be back around 12:30. 12:30. Good gravy, Marie, Deborah, Ann. Let me start over. It is 1 p.m. now. So they're going to be back at 2 p.m. and then there is a half-hour delay. So we're going to start at 2:30 p.m. So you guys be back at 2:30 p.m. and enjoy your break, and I will see you then. Bye.